Okay, so we've covered the basics of HTML, we've covered the basics of CSS. Now we get to get into some exciting stuff. So I know everybody's been waiting for the React.js module. So today, that's what we're going to be building. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is, let me go ahead and open up my terminal. Let me show you React.js. So here is the website for React.js, and again, this is a Facebook technology, and it's considered within the class of SPA application. So SPA just stands for single page application, and it solves a very unique problem. So what it essentially does is, if you think of a traditional website, the way that things used to work before is on a website, on the web page, when you would go to different sections of the website, they would all be separated out actual pages, right? So your server, what it would do is it would serve up these different pages, and then you'd have to do like an entire server call to actually go get the files, and then it would load them in, right? It's traditionally how a website would work. And then, right, you got a little bit of newer technology with like Ajax and jQuery and things like that, where you were able to change the content and then stay on the same page, but like make a separate web request out so that you could change some of the stuff that was displayed out. That was popular for a while. But now what people have is the SPA technology, right, which is single page applications, where in the top ones are Angular, React, and then Vue.js are the ones that most people hear about. And what it does is you're able to create all of these different components essentially that get rendered onto the page, but your application, it's actually just one web page, but we're able to treat it like it's a website that has multiple different pages. And so from the end user's perspective, they can't really tell the difference, but a lot of the advantages of it is it's blazingly fast. It's got a lot of really cool features for state management and things like that. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. So this is just the primary website for React, and if you visit here, I highly recommend it. They've got so a couple of different like examples of things that they have on here. They've got their documentation that's on here. So anytime you have like questions about, where do I go to see things about, React, or, how do you write a particular component in a certain way, you'll be able to find it in their docs that they have on here. Okay, so the way that we're going to do this is you need to make sure that you have Node and NPM installed on your machine, because that's what we're going to use in order to be able to create and then run this application. So you can check for that by just going node-v inside of your terminal, and you should get, I put 2 dashes, node-v. There you go, and it should load. And then same thing with npm-v. Cool, we're good to go. So now what you can do is npm create, and let's make sure I'm in the right folder first. We'll go react.js, clear this out. All right, npm create React app, and then let's go ahead and call it to-do list. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with this. So on here, so what React recommends, the way for you to be able to get started is there's a couple of different frameworks that exist out there for you to be able to use React inside of. So Next.js is one of the really popular ones. I know that they offer server-side rendering as well as a bunch of other really cool features that are in here. I've got this React router one. So we're going to go with just Next.js just because it's one of the more popular ones. And you're going to run this command. So we're going to go npx create next app latest, and it's for the name, we'll say to do. And then we'll say hit yes to proceed. We're going to say no to TypeScript because we haven't covered that yet. We'll say what linter would you like to use? None. Do we want to use Tailwind CSS? Yes, we do. Yes, let's do that. And then would you like to use an app router? No, we're not going to need that for this. No, don't need that. Would you like to customize the import alias? Nope. Don't care. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can just select the same options as I did, and then we'll wait for this to go ahead and install. Okay, great, perfect. So now if we open this up, so let's change directories to there, and then we're gonna do npm run start. All right, let's check out package.json. Why did we get an error? Start. Let's do dev. npm run dev. There we go. All right, so you'll notice right here that it says that the app has been served up on port 3000 localhost. So you're able to just literally type that in, localhost 3000, and boom, right, it's loading up. So if you have any issues with that, just leave a comment down below, and then I'll make sure to help you out with that. So a couple of different things that you're going to get with Next.js are you have this directory right here that's called pages. So in here, this is where you would contain all of the pages, right, for your application and the actual routing that it handles. You've got your styles, so you'll remember from the CSS thing that we did, the module that we did previously, that this is where all of your CSS files, at least for the global portion of your application, would live at. And we're going to go into right here, index.js. And because we're starting fresh, we're going to get rid of all of this. Perfect. We are going to start from scratch with just home. Alrighty. So inside of our index.js file, right, you can just go ahead and remove all of the other stuff that was shown in there. So we're going to go with h1. Perfect. Hello world. And you see it showing up right here. And one of the cool things that Next.js has built into it is it's going to be using, it's like hot, I forget what it's called, but it's like hot mode or something like that, where when you make changes, they're going to pop up for you just automatically live, right over here on the left-hand side, so you don't have to even like manually save and then try and refresh the server and all those kinds of things, which is a really cool feature. So, okay, so for this, I'm going to be showing you how to create a pretty much just like a basic to-do app, because it's going to help us cover a number of concepts that you're able to use inside of React. You're going to understand components and how components work. We're going to go over properties and how you pass state and properties inside of components. And then you're also going to understand how it is that state management works inside of React. So let's go ahead with this. So we're going to do, if we take this and let's do, so the first thing that we're going to want is a component or a setup for our to-do app. So because this is going to be a to-do app, let's go ahead and go my to-do list. And we'll put that inside of this h1 tag. So we'll save that, and you see it showing up right there. We want this to look a little nicer. So I'm going to go here. Now, we included a CSS package called Tailwind. You remember when we first set up this project? And let me show you that real quick. All Tailwind is it's a framework it's the framework that, right, obviously the team at Tailwind made, where all it does is they pre-created a bunch of different helpful CSS styles and classes and things like that for you to be able to use, and then they give you this library so that it's at your disposal. So this is one of the most popular CSS kind of frameworks that's out there right now. I highly recommend that you use it. Yeah, you can see a lot of their supporters and sponsors right here. So let's go ahead and use this. And again, they have their own documentation so that you're able to take a look. So if we go class, and then we're going to add this. So this is text, 3XL, font bold, and then underline. It's going to make our text large, give it bold, and then underline it like this. And let's also say margin 0 auto. I want to see if it'll go ahead and do it for us now. Okay. So then here, what we'll do is let's go ahead and create a container. So, there we go, container. And what this is going to do is mix auto. Well, actually, first let's take a look at the width BG. Okay, there we go, so that we can see it. Okay, perfect. So I see what's going on. We need to center our text. So go to right here, and then you're going to add a class called text center. There you go, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of the red background. Alrighty, so now that we have our container right here, and one of the things you'll notice is different from we had in some of the previous modules with HTML is that they just use class when we were doing CSS. But if you go to, yeah, right here, see it just says class, but inside of a React project, they use, on all of their elements, they use class name. So that's just something to keep in mind. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to want, so now that we have the header, what we're going to want is an input, because inside of our input, we need a way to be able to add actual to-do items to this list, right? So let's go ahead and say this. And so what this is this is an input element. So this is a new one that you might not have seen before, but this input element, it's what you'll see on websites when you're able to go in and then type in information. And so we have input, type text, letting it know what kind of stuff is going to be in there. The placeholder, which is just the text that's going to be sitting there. The class name, and then so this is going to add that border. This is going to give our border some color. And again, remember these are helper classes that we have from Tailwind, which we configured at the installation. Rounded MD is just so that these corners right here is for the actual border radius itself to give it that rounded look. And then a P2, that's for the padding. All right, so now that we have this, I want there to be a little bit more space between this and then our actual to-do input right here. So let's go ahead and do that. We can add some margin right here. So if we say MT, which is a Tailwind utility class, it stands for margin top. We're going to say -4. All right, cool. Let's do a little bit more. I'm going to do -8. Okay, yeah, that's cool. That works. All right, so now, right, we're able to tap, and that's cool. So the next thing that we need to do is, okay, after we've typed in some text to our input that we have right here, we need to tell our application, hey, keep track of whatever text that I've actually typed into this input, and then we want to have also create a submit button so that when the user hits enter, it'll go ahead and it'll take that input that they gave it and it's going to track it somehow. So let's go ahead and create the button first. So we'll do this. Here's the button, and so we have an element button, and yeah, that works. Except I want to put it on a different line. So what I'm gonna have us do is, let's just create a line break here. Actually, no, it should be, yeah, it's fine on the end. Margin top. I don't think you need the margin top though for the button. That's fine. Padding 2. Oh, that's, yeah, let's give it some more padding then. Let's do P4. Oh, too much. 3. I guess we could stick with 2. That's fine. Let me see it without the rounded though. Yeah, better with the rounded. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so we've got our input, and then we've got our button right here. And let's call it create to do, so that, there we go. So when you click it, right, we want it to be able to add a to-do list or a to-do item. So for that, we'll need to start bringing in some state. So let's go ahead and say inside of the component, to use state, we're gonna say const to do's, comma, set to do's equals use state, parentheses, and then inside of the parentheses, the square brackets, semicolon. Yep, and then we're gonna need to go up here, import use state from React. Okay, so what is use state? So use state is a function that you're able to call that returns a value of your state, which is just the data that you're going to contain inside of it. And then this set to do's is another function that you can call, which is a way for you to be able to put new data inside of that container, right? So to do's is going to be our variable, and again, just think of it as like a container that contains information for your application, and then set to do's is the way that you actually put information into that container. And this right here, this use state, this initial thing that you put in here, this empty square bracket. So inside of JavaScript, this is a data structure called an array, which is just a list of items. So if you have a empty square brackets that are sitting right here, that just represents it's an empty list. Alrighty, and then let's go ahead and we will do this. So the first thing we need is a function inside of here in order to tell the application, hey, take whatever the user has put inside of that input and then put that into our to-dos variable right here. So let's create that. So we'll say const handle to do, or handle create to do. And we'll go arrow function, and then we're going to say set to do's to do's, and then we will say we're going to add our new one, and our new one is going to be const new to do is equal to e.target.value new to do. Okay, so a lot going on here. So handle create to do, this is our function that we have that's going to handle when the user actually clicks a button, being able to retrieve the information that you put inside of our input component that we have here. Const new to do is equal to e, and this e right here, and so inside of a function, the arguments or the items that you'll see that pop up inside of a function, these are called your arguments or your parameters. So the e right here just represents an event. So event.target.value, and that's that event.target.value. That's the way that you represent inside of JavaScript. Hey, whatever it is that the user input here, event target value, that's what it's going to reference. So our new to-do item is going to be this right here. And then right here, we're setting the state. So we have set to-dos, and then we have another function inside of these parentheses that you'll see. This right here is just taking the current list of to-dos that we have, and it's saying, hey, go ahead and make this update where this to-dos, this is JavaScript's spread operator. What it essentially does is it's re-putting the array, so our list, it's outputting all the items of that list into this right here, which is our new list that we're creating. So right, to-dos by itself is all the to-do items that you have sitting in there, and then we're spreading it so that you output all of those values. Spreading it so that you output all of those values, and then we're adding this new to-do, right? So give us our original list with this one additional new one. Okay, so, okay, so now that we've created this function, we can go ahead and we can put this inside of our input that we have. Actually, wait, hold on. Create to-do function e.target.value. Yes, there's actually, hold on, small mistake that we have here. Let's create a new function, const handle to-do input equal to, there we go, e. And then we're gonna take this, cut it, paste it in here. And then we're gonna create another state item. We're gonna say const new to-do input, comma, set to-do input. And then for use state, the initial value we're going to set right here is just empty double quotes. And then right here we'll add set new to-do input, and then we'll pass in this new to-do. Okay, so let me explain what's going on. So there's two different events that are happening here, right? One is when the user actually clicks on something inside of their input that they have. You want to be able to take that input and store it inside of our application state, right? So that our app knows, hey, every time they hit a key on the keyboard, we need to be able to keep track of that so that we can use it for a new to-do item. That is a different event from when we're going to click on create to-do. And so for create to-do, when we click on that, it's then going to say, hey, go get that information that the user's already typed up and then add it to our new list. And then for the handle create to-do, yeah, we can just actually take that out, and then we're just gonna pass in, and we're gonna say, hey, when you create a new to-do item, when this button right here is gonna be clicked, just go ahead and get whatever it is that the user has typed in and add that to the new to-do. And then after that, we'll also want to, right, go ahead and set whatever inside of here to blank so that it gets reset. Okay, so actually I'll remove this or comment this out so that you can see why, just to get an idea for the state. So then now here on the input, there are these things called event handlers inside of JavaScript. So an event handler is, hey, when a certain event happens, go ahead and do this, right? So for here, you'll notice that it's an attribute, right, from our previous HTML lessons that we had. You go on change. So on the on change handler is triggered every time the user tries to type something inside of that input. So we'll say on change equals, and then we'll pass it a function, handle to do input. Passing it this function tells it what code to execute when the user is changing something, when the user is typing something. And so watch, we'll even do, console.log new to do. So let's open up our developer console. We're gonna click on here, and that's the A, B, right? You'll notice whatever it is that we type in, that's getting console logged right here. We can delete it. So that's how, right, and this is why our state is important. So that's how we're referencing our state right here. Now watch this. When we go to here, we'll say on click is equal to handle create to do. And that's now going to reference this right here. So remember, we're taking that, whatever the user has typed inside of our input box right here. And then when they click create, it's going to add some state. So we'll do, we'll even go ahead and say console.log to-dos. And I'm going to show you another feature inside of React. This is actually the proper way to do what it is that we're trying to do. Let's cut this. We're going to do something called useEffect. useEffect. So the useEffect function, or the useEffect hook, what it's used for is you can tell your application, hey, when something changes or when this particular thing happens, I want you to go ahead and execute some code, right? Kind of similar to these event handlers that we were talking about down here that you normally have with HTML and JavaScript. So let's go ahead and do down here. Now let's keep it closer to our use state hooks. So we're going to say use effect, parentheses, another set of parentheses. And then because this is going to be an arrow function, curly brackets, And then we're going to say console.log to-dos. And then we have to give it another property. So after this ending curl that you see right here, you're going to do comma. And then you're going to do these square brackets. And we're going to type to-dos. So what is this? What's going on right here with the second one? So this second argument that you're seeing with the square brackets, this is what's called the dependency array inside of a useEffect hook. And so the dependency array is how you're able to tell the React application, hey, when this particular thing changes, I want you to execute this code right here, right? Otherwise, anytime anything in your application changed, it would always be firing the function, but we don't want that. We just want this to fire specifically when our to-dos get updated. And so this is how you tell it to do that. And we're just going to console log what's showing up in the to-dos. So I'm going to remove this one that we have right here. And let's clear out our console. Refresh. Okay, so let's say clean room. Create. Wow, look at that. Right, this is our state. This is our list that we have, right, of our to-dos. Okay, cool. Let's create another one. Wash dishes. Cool, right? And you'll notice right now there's two because we added 2 into the list. And so what you're seeing right now is the browser console log out our to-do state that we have. So you'll notice though with our app, what we really want it to do, there's a couple of different features though. One is when we create a new to-do, we don't want it to just stay in here. We want to reset this so that it's blank so that we can add in new to-dos. And then we want our to-dos to show up right here so that you'll be able to see them. So let's go ahead and we'll do that first one. And to do that, we're now going to create a new component so that you can see how components work. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. Let's call it components. And inside of this folder, we're going to create another component. Let's call it to-do item. And then we're going to create a file in here. And let's call it to-do, let's say to-do item dot, yeah, capitalize it actually. To-do item dot JS. And then we're going to go import React from React and then to-do item. So export default function. Export right here, this is just a way in JavaScript of letting your code know, hey, we're giving outside access to this piece of code right here, this chunk of code, our function, which is going to be our to-do component that we have. So allow that to be accessed outside of just this one file right here. We want to be able to share it with the other files. And so we have just a basic component. So this to-do item, you'll notice we've got the parentheses, we've got the curly brackets, and then to-do. So let me explain this. So what this does is inside of a React component, which is what our function is, anything that you pass in right here are what are called props or the properties. And so it's just a way for you to be able to pass in data and to share state between components. So here, this is going to be, if this is our to-do, whatever it is that we type in, we've got our div, which is just a little container. And yeah, let's go ahead and add some styling right here to make it probably look a little nicer. Same for here. And so we've got our h1 tag right here, right? The text, extra large, got font bold, borders, border gray, rounded, MD. Again, these are just the Tailwind CSS utilities. And what this is going to do, though, it's going to display this to-do state on our h1 class name so that whatever it is that we pass into a to-do item, we'll be able to see it. Now, the reason you'll want to separate things out into components like this are for a couple of reasons. One, and this is the power of using a library like React, is when you're able to separate things out into components like this, we can reuse this to-do item function over and over and over again instead of having to recreate this logic. And so it creates less work for you as a developer, and it makes your code base easier to maintain, makes all your code work seamlessly together. And when somebody comes along behind you and they start also working in your code base, they're able to come along and say, right, what is this doing? To-do item. That probably has to deal with to-do items, right? And then they're able to see your properties here. It's able to be reused, right? It's good. That's the way that you're supposed to do things according to the best practices. All right. So now let's go back into index.js. And now we need to pull in our component. So if you say, let's leave a comment right here, components, let's do import to do item from / components to do item. And then we're going to declare it down here. So let's do the curly brackets. So this right here, what you're looking at that looks like HTML, it looks like HTML, but it's not. It's React's way of being able to represent HTML like elements inside of the React framework, and it allows you to be able to add all of this really cool and interesting state and event handlers. So you can kind of sort of treat it like it's HTML. It's like a mixture between HTML and JavaScript. And right now we want to be able to access our to-dos and to tell our application, hey, go through the list of to-dos in the state that we have. And for every time you find a to-do list item, I want you to go ahead and I want you to put that on our web page that we have. So we'll go inside of these curly brackets right here. And you need to do this because whenever you're switching from using this JSX HTML looking syntax to referencing direct JavaScript, you have to use the curly brackets, and you're going to say to-dos dot map. Map is a built-in function into JavaScript, and what it does, it's specifically built in. It's a built-in method on JavaScript arrays, and so what it says is, hey, you're allowed to, spit out each individual item that you have inside of your list. So go ahead and do that. We'll say parentheses, and then we're going to do another set of parentheses to do. There's going to be an arrow function, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to use parentheses here so that inside of what this does is in the arrow function, this is telling it to, for every item, we're going to return something, because what we're going to be returning is our to-do item component that we had before. So let's go ahead and put that in here. To-do item. To-do equals to-do, and let's go ahead and close up our component. Okay, perfect. So with this logic right here, we've told our application, every time something is added to to-dos, right, is sitting inside of our list, I want you to go ahead and show that to the end user. So if we go and do that again, clean room, right, now we have this. Let's go wash dishes. Now we have this, right? Cool. So now we have our state. We're handling our state and updating our to-dos. We're also adding input. We're also handling the user input state that we have right here. But again, we still have this issue where whenever we create the to-do, we want it to reset it back to its default, which is what was right here. So I'm going to uncomment this set new to-do input, and then we just set it to this blank or empty string. And what that does is it's 2 double quotes, and that's just an empty string. This is going to reset this, so let's try it now. Right, hold on, I think it's... Save that. New to-do input. Oh, hold on. One thing that we're missing. So for the input, there's another attribute that you use on here. So onChange tracks the value of whatever it is that you put into the input. But if you want to be able to set using your state what is actually displayed inside of here, you can do that with the value attribute. So we'll do new to-do input. Perfect. Okay. So now we're explicitly telling our application that whatever state we're tracking inside of new to-do input to force that inside of our input. So now if we go, say we add something else like mop the floors. Great. Now it's setting it back to its original default. Okay, cool. So this is good. I like this so far, but we can make it more interesting. So whenever you have any kind of a to-do application like this, right, you're going to also need a way to be able to tell, hey, has this been done? Has this been completed? Check it off, right? Done, not done, that kind of thing. So that's going to be a little bit more complex, because right now you'll notice what we add to our to-dos is we're just adding the direct input. So the name, we're only holding one property, and that's the name of what our to-do item is going to be. So in order to represent more complex state, we're going to go from just using a normal string, which is what this is, to we want an object now, because it's going to be able to represent multiple and contain and categorize multiple different kinds of properties and fields under the same container. So what we're going to do is we will go ahead to, where is create? Here we go. So yep, to do input. Okay, cool. So create new input. Gotcha. So what we'll do is we will say const new to do is equal to curly brackets, which is how you represent, curly brackets, which is how you represent a object inside of JavaScript. And we will set an ID property. We'll say to-dos dot length +1. And then we'll say to do is equal to new, and this ID that we've set right here, this is going to be important because when React is trying to render out items, you want to be able to give it a key value so that it knows what order to be able to render things in. So now we're going to add the new to do input, which is still going to be our same string. And then we're going to have is completed. And the default is going to be false, right? Because when you first add a to-do, it's not complete yet. And now we're going to create new to-do. Perfect. So now with this setup that we have, we're not just adding a string, but we're adding an object with all of these different properties. We've got an ID to be able to track it. We've got to-do so that we can see what the actual to-do item list or thing is. And then we have this is completed field so that we can see, has it been completed yet? Has it not been completed yet? And right now, this also means that we're going to need to update some of the code that we have inside of our to-do item component that we have right here, because right now it's just rendering to-do. And if we try to just get it to do that, that's going to be a little bit wonky. We want it to be able to actually display out the name. So let's go to-do, because this is a object again, remember. So we're going to go to-do dot to-do. And then we're going to go, where's it at? So it's refresh, and it was rendering those old ones because we were still using the list. It was still remembering that. So now if we go ahead and do clean, create, perfect. Now you'll notice we get this error right here down in the developer console that says each child on the list should have a unique key property, which is correct. So we will pass it the ID as a key property. Key equals to-do dot ID, and perfect. I should get rid of that. And that's just so that when React is trying to render things out and display them, it wants to be able to keep track of which item is which. So now let's go. And we will add some more logic to our to-do item component that we have. All right, so we're also going to want a button is equal to, we'll come back to class name, and let's say on click. We'll do an arrow function inside of here. Keep the button, and we'll say complete. Yeah, and let's go ahead and add this state in here. Complete, and then say complete item. And then for on click. So that, now let's go ahead and create a function. And remember, we're inside of our to-do item component, which is different. So we're gonna go back up here. We're gonna say const handle complete to-do. And we're gonna need to add some new properties here. We're gonna say handle complete to do. Yeah, we can actually get rid of this. And then we're just gonna pass it in right here. Handle complete to do inside of the on click, and then we're gonna pass it in to do.id. So let's go over this. So the reason that we wanna create it up here is because we wanna be able to access these functions right here. And so we can create the function here and then just pass it in to our component. So let's go ahead and go const handle complete to do is equal to ID. And the reason we're passing in the ID of what the particular to do item is so that it'll know which item it's supposed to actually be updating. Cool. And then we're going to say const updated to dos is equal to dos dot map. Yeah, that's fine. To do. And then we're going to say if to do dot ID is equal to this ID, the one that we're passing into our function, let's return that to-do item. It's that we will set is completed to true, else simply return to do. And then this looks good, so let's go ahead and pass this in. Handle complete to do, handle complete to do. Okay, cool, yeah. This looks great. All right, so we're passing this in to our child component right here. And then go ahead and clear our console again. All right, now the other thing that we need to do is we need to be able to display if the item has been completed or not. So let's do, I'm gonna change around the way some of this looks also. So we'll say h1 to do dot is completed. We can use JavaScript's ternary operator. Not completed. Perfect. Okay. So right here we have a header component again, and we're saying, hey, check the to-do. If the to-do is completed, go ahead and display this string, completed. Otherwise, display that it's not completed. So let's clean room, create the to-do, right? Not completed, but if we click completed, then wait, hold on a second. So we've got a bug somewhere. Yeah, we click on complete item button, handle on click to do that, to do item, handle complete to do. And let's check to see why. Handle complete to do, pass it in the ID. Oh, I see. I see what the problem is. We're never actually setting the state here. So right here, to-dos map. So map, you can use it in order to, right, do it what we're doing where we're finding a particular item. Because really we just want to be able to update that individual item. And so because it's a list, right, we're doing map. And what map does is it actually returns and creates a new list, and then we're storing it inside of this value called updated to-dos. So when it's found it, it's updating it properly, but we then have to tell our state, right? And this is part of the debugging process, and why it's it's going to be important to make sure that you're looking through. You're going to be able to go through like your logic that you have and determine, okay, where am I setting things? What's going wrong? How do I find things? And right here, we're updating it properly, but it's actually unused. What needs to go on now is we need to make a call to update this. So we're going to go set to-dos, boom. And because we've already referenced to-dos right here, right, with updated to-dos, all we're going to do is we're going to say updated to-dos. We just pass it in right there, just like that. So now let's try this. Clean room, create to-do, click it. And then boom, now it says completed, right? Because it's now that we're actually updating the state, it's actually able to show that and to demonstrate that in the UI. Okay, good. So then let's try to make this look just a little bit cleaner maybe. I want to see if, do I want to maybe make this flex and make it a row? Yeah, let's do flex. And let's say justify. Let's see what justify between is looking like. Okay, that's pretty good, yeah. And then let's do, yeah, we can add some boldness. But I feel like it would, it would be even better is if we make I wonder if we can make this, should we make this like a checkbox or not? No, completed is fine. I don't think I really like let's actually take the bold out though. Yeah, let's do that. And then, maybe we'll just add some BG. There we go. Completed. And yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. Yep, this is fantastic. Okay, so now what the code is doing, I'll put this on 2 different lines, a little bit easier to see and format it. Okay, so here, let me show you what we did. So we're now using this different format where we're using JavaScript to do a couple of conditional checks on the state. So here's what we're saying. Remember, these are Tailwind utility classes. So like BG green 500 is just setting the background of the element that we're using for our header component, setting the background to green. We've got text white, it's rounded. And right here on what we're doing is we're doing a check inside of the string. And we're saying, hey, if the to-do is completed, go ahead and make the background green. Otherwise, if it's not completed, right, which means we haven't checked it off yet, we want to make the background red. And then same thing here, right, displaying the text of completed or not completed. And if we go ahead and check now, complete the item, I think we'll need to, if we open this up, completed is true. If it's completed, yes, otherwise. And let's take this out so that the inline is not trying to overwrite anything. And we're going to refresh. We're going to create a new one. So clean room. Create to do, perfect, not completed, right? Hit it, now it's completed. Cool, so that's the basics of, right, how our application is working. It looks like everything is working fine. We'll go wash. Let's create just a couple more to see a bunch of them. Wash car, mop floors, right? And we'll complete this item. Cool, mop floors. Okay, cool. So this is good. This is looking good. I like the way that this is sitting right here. So this is just the introduction to being able to work with React and creating like a basic to-do kind of application. So in the next one, we'll create something that's, more complex, and we'll start to get into like user logins and things like that. But yeah, that's all for this one. So if you do have any questions about anything, make sure to leave a comment down below. You can also join the school community that I have where I show people how to become software developers, and then you can post in there, right? People love answering each other's questions. It's also one of the best ways to be able to reach me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.